If you don't understand why you're not getting job interviews, then it's because you're making resume mistakes that are not getting you past the 7-second threshold. That's why today I'm going to show you 4 of the biggest mistakes that I see in resumes. And if you can correct these 4 mistakes, then your chances of getting an interview are going to skyrocket. And I know this because as a recruiter, I've read well in excess of 100,000 CVs. And having read that many CVs, you see the same mistakes happening time and time again. And I've helped many candidates go from getting no interviews to getting multiple interviews and landing their dream job just by correcting these 4 mistakes. But before I jump into these 4 mistakes, what is this magic 7-second threshold and why does it matter to you? You can think about it in relation to Netflix. When you turn on Netflix, you're hit with rows and rows of options. There are always a few titles that jump out instantly that you recognize straight away. And then there are others that have long titles, are vague, and don't really make sense. And here's the thing, it's not like with Netflix, you're reading every title, every description, you're scanning through, you're looking for something that pops out that's familiar. And within a few seconds, you might already pick your option. Or you move on to the next thing. And that's exactly what happens when a hiring manager reads your resume. It's those first 7 seconds that really matter. They're not looking to do a deep dive into your achievements or your career history. They're looking for quick signals that suggest to them that you are relevant. If your resume can't answer those questions fast, if it's cluttered, too long, generic, hard to follow, then it's going to get skipped. And that's not because you're not capable, it's because there was something clearer and easier to understand in front of them that they move towards. And that's why the first 7 seconds isn't optional. It's the entry point to everything that comes next. Which brings me to the first of the 4 mistakes you must avoid, which is that between 20 to 35% of Christmas presents end up being re-gifted. If you're like me, then you've probably been given a Christmas present at some point and thought, what the hell is this? Not because it was a bad gift, but because it was clearly chosen without you in mind. It was something that they liked and made sense to them. And this is the single biggest mistake I see with resumes. And from what I see, most resumes are written from the candidate's perspective with very little thought going into who's the person that's going to be reading this and what matters to them. We'd have no Game of Thrones if George R. R. Martin didn't think about his audience, just as much as J.K. Rowling if she didn't think about her audience and what appealed to them. Writing a resume works exactly the same way. It's not about writing your entire career history and everything amazing that you've done. It's about communicating the right information to the right person at the right time. So when you're writing your resume, you should constantly be asking yourself, who's going to be reading this? What problem are they trying to solve? And what information do they need from me to help solve their problem? Hiring managers aren't reading your CV out of curiosity. They're reading it with a specific role in mind, under time pressure, and trying to answer one question. Is this person relevant to what I'm hiring for right now? If your resume doesn't help them answer that question quickly and easily, then they move on. Just like a Christmas present that you didn't really want, but you got it anyway. The second mistake I want to show you is kind of a glass half full. Here I've got 2 cups. This one's empty, this one has some water with ice in it. Watch what happens when I try and tip the cup with water and ice into the one without. Well, there we go. It doesn't flow smoothly. The ice breaks up the water. As you can see, the water's gone everywhere and it's created a lot of mess. Now I've removed the ice and I've just got water. And I can tip the water from one cup to the other and it flows smoothly. And if I were to use a funnel, can guide the water to where it needs to go, which is exactly what your resume should be doing. By funneling the reader's attention, you should be using clear headings, maximizing white space, and have logical structure. And so let's look at some research. In 2018, the job site The Ladders conducted an eye tracking study of professional recruiters over a 10-week period. What they found was that recruiters spent about 80% of their time looking at 6 pieces of information. The candidate's name, the current role, their most recent and previous role, the start and end dates of those roles, and their education. Based on that information alone, recruiters were making quick fit or no fit decisions. That means that long explanations or dense blocks of text have very little meaning in the early stages of reviewing a CV. What mattered was the visual hierarchy in terms of presenting the right information in the right place and where recruiters expect to see it. The study also highlighted that recruiters follow a consistent visual trend of when they are reviewing CVs. When a resume was poorly organized or formatted, a recruiter's eye movement became erratic and their cognitive load increased, which meant it took more mental effort to actually understand the CV. On the other hand, well-formatted resumes were clearer and easier to understand. In other words, formatting doesn't just make your resume look better, it makes it easier to say yes to. Now we move on to mistake number 3, which has a little bit of flavor to it. I used to work in a bakery, and the 5 a.m. starts were brutal, but the cream donuts and the pies really made up for it. It was a local bakery that was super successful for the quality of the food that it made. And I remember on one of my shifts, the head baker said something to me that stuck with me ever since, which is that people buy with their eyes. Once he pointed it out to me, it was something I couldn't really get out of my head, because every single week it was the same food, the same pies, the same cream donuts. They always sold out. Every day they were in the same place. And then there was other food or other products that wasn't bad. It was just they didn't stand out as much, or they weren't as recognizable as the best sellers. Hiring managers, decision makers, they buy with their eyes as well. The icing glistening on the cream donuts, those are your industry specific keywords that are recognizable to anybody in your field. It signals subject expertise at a glance. It's not about putting generic terms. It's about adding, I worked with Salesforce, ServiceNow, Jira. And while we're at it, the freshness of the bread, that's your tangible outcomes. That's about putting numbers, results, outcomes. It's not about improved performance. It's about increased conversion rates by 22% in 6 months. These are the things that make someone stop scrolling. They make your resume easy to trust, easy to say yes to. Because just like in a bakery, people don't buy what they have to figure out. They buy what they recognize immediately. This last mistake actually ties back to our first one, which is why it's so important. For me, I'm terrible at DIY. So anything in terms of changing a washer, hanging a picture frame, I can do that. But if you're looking for me to build a fence, or if I'm going to do some renovations, I keep well clear of that. But even I understand this. When something needs fixing, you don't use every tool you have. If I've got to fix the tap, then I don't take my ladder, the drill, a saw, and just empty the toolbox onto the floor. You grab the one tool that solves the problem. Most people use the same resume for every role and hope it fits. But hiring managers aren't all looking to fix or solve the same problems. That's why a tailored resume is about choosing the tools to match the job, not every job you've ever done. To understand what I mean by a tailored CV, here's something that I've actually prepared earlier to show you how it works. First, you'll see the job title here. So I've used the exact job title from the advert that I'm applying to. So this immediately anchors the hiring manager's brain and reinforces the idea that I've done the role before, and it helps with any AI matching in a company's HR system or anything to do with their ATS. Next is the key skills section. So firstly, it needs to mirror the job advert. The 5 skills I've listed here are the exact ones I would pull straight from the role description. That'd be the 5 that I've identified to be the top 5 that need to be mirrored back to the hiring manager. It front loads proof. That's what tailoring really is. Choosing the experience that directly matches the role instead of listing everything. It's flexible. Each bullet point can actually be swapped out, reduced, or expanded on depending on the job. So you don't have to do a complete rewrite. It's just more of a rebalance. And this is the important part. Each skill is 2 sentences in length. The first shows what you did. The second sentence shows the results you achieved. That structure alone makes tailoring fast, focused, and effective. It's one of the quickest and most powerful ways to tailor your CV for each role without having to start from scratch every time. So, if you fix all 4 of these mistakes and craft the perfect resume, does that mean you're going to get an interview on every occasion? Well, no, it won't. But what it will do is it'll drastically increase your odds of getting an interview. Because now, instead of your resume being overlooked in the first 7 seconds, it's actually doing its job. It's clear, it's relevant, it's easy to scan, and most importantly, it's tailored to the role in front of you. Recruitment will always be competitive because there's always going to be a stronger candidate or an internal applicant or timing issues or just factors outside of your control. Is whether your resume helps the person who is reading it answer the one question that's important to them. Is this person right for this role? right now. When your resume can answer that clearly, you stop being part of the noise and you start becoming part of the shortlist. So before you apply for your next role, instead of asking, is my resume good enough? Ask yourself, is my resume right for this job?